All right, welcome to Powerhouse Conversations, where sports, tech, and business intersect. I'm your host, Fred Underwood, and today we'll be diving into student athletes and how they can use their power of their NIL to not only profit, but build a legacy. Today, we have an incredible guest, Aisha Foy, founder of Major NIL Success Bootcamp and a pioneer in guiding athletes on how to maximize their NIL potential on and off the field. Aisha, welcome to the show.
To talk about my favorite subject, name, image, and likeness.
Absolutely. So, can you share a bit about your journey into the NIL space and what inspired you to start your boot camp?
My journey into NIL started when I was a student athlete myself. Even though it relies as far as monetization, while I was a student athlete, I understood the leverage that we had, and I understood the platform that we had. So I wanted to myself and dive into my. So I started doing anything I could possibly do to build my brand, to better myself, to get involved with companies. I was really into marketing. I had a really good social media marketer, and a personal branding professor and a leadership professor. And, those classes and understanding the opportunity that we had as they really inspired me to just do more, right? To build a brand, to build a platform, and to use this platform that we have. So that's why I did an internship when I was an athlete in New York City. So I was exposed to business, exposed to branding. Actually did 4 internships total while I was a student athlete, all in the name of building my brand. I became a better player because of building my brand. And I tell people NIL saved my career because if it wasn't for my reputation, I probably would have quit. We had a coaching frustrating a few years. It was kind of rocky, but it was always my brand that kept me going. It was always my brand that kept me behaving. Hard head sometimes. I could be a hot head sometimes. How it was my brand. I would be like, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
If I get in, I won't be able to play, and if I'm not up my brand. So like literally, I would have those thoughts while I was playing, while I was in practice. Should I do this thing to my coach, or should I do this thing to my coach? And I would think, nah, that's gonna mess up my brand. So I'm a be good. So it's like if it wasn't for building my brand, I probably would have quit basketball and conference things. But it was the things outside of sport that kept me going, kept me motivated, kept me inspired, and almost caught an NIL I was playing because I went in branding and Dot Trainer. We did this video, and it was really supposed to be, but it was about my training. He was filming and things like that, but it looked like a commercial. And posted it and called my coach. I'm having a meeting with coach, and they said you need to take this video down, or your trainer need to take this video down, or you're not playing in the next game. This is about, and that was in 2014. So that's where it started for me, is when I was playing. That's why I'm so invested in it. It's not something I'm like, ooh, this is a cool business, let me try it. Like, no, I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
And then professionally, when I left coach to go NIL full time, it was when I was at University of Kentucky in the law pass. And I would meet and I would see that they had no idea of what to do. And then I would meet with our student athletes, and then the learning curve was so frustrating. Like, I had players at Kentucky that had experiences, and they couldn't get, just because they couldn't get the deals I thought they should be getting. They got deals, but not the deals they should be getting, just because of the learning curve with knowing how to present yourself to athletes, and not athletes, to brands, and knowing how to, and then the experience that it takes to actually carry out a deal. The learning curve, it was so daunting, and you may be a junior in college and you're like, oh man, well, I'm not getting deals, It's because there's a whole nother skill set that you need to learn that you were unaware of, and now you're trying deals and you have no clue about how to talk to companies, talk to business, or what they're even looking for. So I thought it was a good idea to start success, to help athletes as they're being recruited. You're learning the skill in the same way that you're learning your sport or all the other things that you need to do to get ready to be a college athlete. So uh, that's how I got started.
No, no, I love it. I love it. Before we move forward, I do want to kind of ask you, like, what gave you that foundation of already like just thinking about your brand? Because you have a lot of athletes that may not be thinking that sound at a young or early age. So, like, what inspired you or gave you that foundation?
Freshman, I was very ambitious. So anything that has to do with bettering your future, I was on it. Or I paid attention, or just be unaware, so very aware. And actually, she saw something in me in senior woman administration, the second in command. So you have the director, then you have the SWA.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Okay.
one basically in charge of the athletic department, she kind of took me under her wing, and she was like, "Hey, I signed you up for this leadership
Mm-hmm.
conference involved with SAC. So when you're involved with SAC, kind of in the mix with all the and they're asking you questions and you're really making
Right.
decisions. So um marketing, but as far as like being really in tune with it was when I went to a conference when I was a student, I think in my freshman year. And I would say that was the list for everything that I'm doing now is was attending that conference.
No, I love it. I love it, and I think that's very important. That's something that you know that's kind of how I got where I am. Like, somebody taking me under their wing, taking me into these conferences, being with all these adults. You're young, you're learning. You don't really know what to do, but you're just soaking up as much as you can. People are taking a liking to you, and then you just grow from there. So I definitely understand that journey as well. Yeah. So my next question is just like with NIL being like you kind of talked about it being relatively new. Like even when you were playing, like it wasn't a thing. What I'm saying, how have you seen the landscape just change and evolve? Because it's moving so fast with the new policies, right? So like, what have you seen? Just from a couple years ago to now.
Much and mainly thing I think is in recruiting because and the money or athletes approaching recruiting asking for money. I would say that's the big because once the season is going and the game is being played, it's the same. Like from the consumer standpoint, it's the same, or even better, more invested in the players, just like with the pros. But Lajay, Caitlin Clark, their personal brands has elevated the game, which common sense, because the
Yeah,
NBA is surrounded, like their business is surrounded by creating superstars because people like people, right? So, I mean, why NBA players wasn't already trying to build a brand? Who knows?
yeah,
But now it's pretty obvious how powerful a personal brand could be. But I would say the recruiting, then transfer portal. Which transfer portal was already like uh, resisting, but what and
right.
makes it even worse, like, because
Yeah,
it just moves so fast, quick decisions, and I don't want it to become transactional. I want you to get your money, I want you to ask those questions, but me personally, I don't even want it to be transactional. And even with the athletes that I mentor and families that I talk to, like I'm pro go where you fit. Like they're calling me
yeah,
because they
yeah,
probably say, "Oh, how much they offering," which they part of the conversation. But I'm a coach and a recruiter first. I'm gonna say go to where you fit because I know how hard it is. I take that back.
yeah,
So I know
yeah,
how
yeah, yeah.
it is. I know that transition. If you're unhappy, is very miserable. It don't matter how much money you're being paid. So,
Right.
um, I'm just hoping that it stays off as an individual standpoint. But like they say, like it's is going crazy. But I just think individuals need to focus on what they want out of situations and be able to discern a good situation accordingly.
Yeah, as they say, keep the main thing, and because even to the standpoint of like, if you think about just the transfers and it not being a good fit, but what's her name? LSU point guard from LSU. I'm trying to think of her name. Can't think of her name right now. but she ended up going transferring to LSU from yeah, Haley. That's what I couldn't Haley Van Lith. Okay, yeah. So Haley transferred to LSU and wasn't necessarily a good fit, and then now she's transferring again. So it's like you can, if you go, for whatever the reason is, and it's like you might keep jumping around. So like these athletes that NIL, they might go for the wrong reasons to the wrong school, and then now you have to move around, and that's not good for, like you just said, your brand. So I think that's very important. So like you mentioned it a little bit, but just like with players like Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, they got those big NIL deals. They're high profile athletes. But tell me a little bit about how you approach the non high profile athletes. What are you teaching them?
Process is the same, right? So Flage, she just got started. One, she's a multi-talented person. She's already a professional
Mm-hmm.
entertainer. Like if you throw basketball away,
Yep.
she could have her platform as elevated if she wasn't playing basketball, but she would be heading that direction regardless. Um,
Yep.
with who you are, right? Flage leads with that. I'm a rapper and I'm a basketball player,
Yep.
right? Angel
Yep.
Reese, right? What is she known for? She's known for her competitiveness, her attitude, trash
Mm-hmm.
talking,
Mm-hmm.
all those
Yep.
things doing when she was young, right? So the only difference
Yep.
between, and if you haven't watched the game, anybody listen out there, watch the Money Game. If you have any questions about NIL, the Money Game will answer all those. Um, but the athletes that was highlighted there was Angel, Jay, Dunn, right? They probably was the highest women earners in all of NIL, and they're ahead of everybody is because they started building their brand earlier, and that's what I teach in my academy. Is like you have to build a. If you don't build a brand, you won't reap the benefits of what you see those other doing. So it's the same process. You just get started earlier, or you do it better, right? So it's just understanding who you are and what you want to represent, right? For example, Jerice and an attitude, right? Right, good or bad, she has an
Mm-hmm.
attitude, right? That people gravitate to it or people don't like it, and that's her. She just stands.
Yep.
Just more people know about it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the only difference. She stands on it. She plays it well, and more people know about it, right? An
Yep.
athlete, I say, okay, who are you? What do you want to be known for? Right? That's the foundation. Is understanding, okay, how can you build your platform for it so more people know about it, right?
Right.
Um, so with any and everybody, I mean, even I'm glad in the Money Game about Shaq and with his professor when he was a student athlete at LSU, his professors actually the person that said, "Hey, you are a player. You need a brand to go with this." And Shaq is the real king of NIL because if you walk in any store, you probably see something Shaq related.
Right.
I was at Office Depot, and he's promoting printers, right? So stuff doesn't happen on accident, like
Yeah.
you have. But his professor, his marketing professor, came to him and was like, "Hey, you're going to be a good basketball player. You need a brand to go with this, right?" So the process is the same for everybody. You just either engage in it or you don't, and it's a choice. It's not something
Right.
that people are going to make you do, right? You can be
Yep.
a WNBA player and one of the 144 WNBA players, and you can be the top women's basketball player, but nobody knows about you, so that does you
Right.
no good, right? Or it could just be like, I just want
Yeah.
to play basketball, be in the league, and I'm happy with that. But like, why not capitalize of being an elite athlete? You know,
Yep. Yep, and I think that's important to point out, right? Because I know one of the things that you said earlier is just like being yourself, right? Just showing who you are, and it doesn't have to be who someone else is. It doesn't have to be who Angel Reese is. It doesn't have to be who Flage is. It can be simply who you are and showing that, and somebody may gravitate towards it. But if you're authentically showing who you are, then it's gonna work out. Yep. And so I did want to just talk about some of the key pillars in your boot camp of like what are you teaching? Like, can you give us a little bit about like when you talk about building a brand, a legacy, like that's longer than those 4 years that they're playing. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you're teaching them.
see, I love that you use that word because if you do this right, utilize these 4 years. You so many athletes graduate and they don't know what they're doing, fall into depression, confusion, all these things, athletic career because they weren't thinking about it. So if you do this right, you can really leave a legacy and build your legacy now. But my is that's where I speakers in and I coach athletes on a consistent basis. And during the academy, the foundation is building your brand, understanding who you are, self awareness, what do you want to be known for, and really owning that with self. And then it's about building your story. Everybody and the brands relate to your uh, that they're looking at, and they want one to do a deal with or to partner with, and they're going to do the ones to their story that matches their story. So, an athlete that I was working with, we were doing a deal, was working on the deal together, and the C sat down with her, and she was amazing, but like wanted to know, like he had questions like drilling her, like what made you start
Mm-hmm.
playing basketball, or why are you than anybody else, and she was already basically picked, but they still wanted to make the story align with his story and the story of his
Yeah.
company. So, um, understanding your brand story, right? And then the third part is building that influence. So how are you going to consistently communicate this, your brand? Your brand, you got understanding your story. How are you going to consistently communicate your story? And then businesses, and it's an ongoing process. It's just like with basketball, you dribble, you pass, you shoot. The game doesn't change. With branding, is very similar. The game doesn't change. You just have to do it, get better at it, be more, and then make it, figure out how you want to impact people.
I love it. I love it. I do want to kind of transition into like tech and business, and those are because tech is some of the driving forces behind how helping these athletes grow their brands is being used, like from social media to digital content, digital platforms, stuff like that. What do you teach, or what are some of the things that you all teaching about helping athletes secure NIL deals through using technology like social media and digital content?
Social media, obviously, you got to have that right, because that's the quickest way to get your brand out there. Um, and I media all the time, but I do teach. You got to have a relationship with the public. Social media is a great way to do that. And when we get to the actual part of productizing yourself and doing deals, there are market that I guess a leader in the NIL space, but they're really in the technology space, like the
Mm-hmm.
influencer and endorse and post game and
Yep. Yep.
those marks. I teach my athletes, the ones that are in college, like make sure that you are on those apps and looking for deals, the mobile
Mm-hmm.
app. All of those are really good places where they connect fans to the athlete or to the school. Um, because you can use one of those apps to send a contract through, and then they sign the
Mm-hmm.
contract, and then I know Open Door they kind of vet the contracts before, so they make sure that the
Mm-hmm.
money is there before you even accept the deal. So
Right.
technologies are good to make the process go quick, and then
Yep.
bridge the gap for a lot of these things that happen. Most, like I say, a lot of the top schools use Open Doors and Influencer and those technologies like that because they're right. And it's
Yep.
easy to
Yep.
think they're NIL companies, which they are
Yeah.
because that's the mean that they use. But really, they're the leaders in the space because they're the leaders in the technology. They have the best technology.
Right.
So it's a big part in. And you talking about GPT, and
Yep.
that I had partnered with earlier, NIL GPT. You can go to nilly.ai to find out more information about that. Nilly.ai. You can, and then you can literally ask questions about policy. You can ask questions about. You can type in your state and your interest in, and you can see their NIL policy. At nili.ai. And then if you account free, it'll ask you what your affiliation is. You can type in my name, Aisha Ford, and be able to see. You'll be able to use that for about 30 days free or something like that. Is what kind of with the partnership that we have going on. So, lots of different
Yeah. No.
ways to immerse yourself in using tech to.
No, I think that's dope, especially like I said, when you have students that don't have a lot of access or resources, as the big schools, being able to have as much help as possible is key, and I think that tech is what bridges that gap. It makes that gap a lot smaller. It allows the athletes that aren't at the big schools, at the big universities, or even just the big the big programs on campus, right? Like we know the resources are going to go in most cases football, men's basketball, things of that nature. But as they grow, you have somebody who's on men's golf or something like that, or women's tennis, or whatever that sport may be that doesn't get as much attention. But if they leverage these tools and things like that, they're able to garner NIL success because they're using tools to be successful and build a brand. So I think that's important.
I do want to say this though, because you're at a big school, you have more resources. Because that's not really the case. Um, you can use open doors no matter what school you're at, and it's
Yep.
the big brands that are getting the most attention. It doesn't matter what school they're at. Um,
Right.
an NIL person, they may have one or two, maybe even three NIL people in an entire university. So there's not,
Hmm.
what I love about NIL, it's not biased to anybody, right?
Yep.
Either elite athlete or you an elite brand builder, and you
Hmm.
may be an elite athlete, but you can be an elite brand builder, and that's a choice, right? So
Yep.
I know Power Five athletes that have I think they have strong brands. They're
Yep.
good. They and they still are not armed with resources, right? So
Yeah.
it's an even playing field for everybody, for most people, right? So
Hmm.
maybe the top 1 or 2% may be elevated, and that's of
Hmm.
athletes. It doesn't matter what school you're at, of athletes that are
Yep.
elevated, but everybody else has the same access and ability, right? So um, don't think that because you're at a certain school or you at a certain conference that you have less resources than everybody else. If you have the internet, you have a
Right.
phone, you have the same
Right.
resources as everybody else.
Agree.
The only thing that made make somebody different, have a really good agent, right? The resource that may not be available to everybody. And I have an agent, and
Hmm.
a top athlete at a top university may be the athlete with an agent. But as far as building a brand, resources, access to deals,
Hmm.
literally, if you have a media, you have a camera, you have the same resources as every other athlete, except so. Don't discount yourself. That's
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that, just from the agent standpoint, because what I took from that is just the ability to have that network and those connections, right? Like I said, anybody can build a brand and build it as far as it can go, right? But if you have those connections and you have those, those the access to the different brands which an agent may, have, is that what you were kind of speaking toward?
team of support that is all making sure in the money game they show different athletes with different resources. So you have Flage, and she have her family. She got her whole team, making sure that she does this content right. And
Yeah.
then you will have it was a walk on basketball. I love that they show different people. Walk on basketball
Hmm.
player. He is himself. He chose to be a content creator, and he's to um, meetings, and it's just him. And he got a G
Yeah.
wagon, was getting deals for 25K because of his brand.
Yeah.
That character, that's somebody that everybody could be, right? And
Yeah.
yes, you do have
Right.
to have a certain type of interest to want to be a content creator. So, but you have the choice
Right.
to do that. And again, he got a
Yeah.
100,000 car, by being a
Mm.
brand, right? And he's a walk on. Um,
Yeah.
and it made more at LSU as a walk on because he's making more than his tuition in NIL because of his
Right.
connections.
Right.
So
Right.
he may not be the one, like a Jaden Daniels was chosen to. So I'll give a specific example. So they have a big attorney in town, Get Gordon, Super Bowl commercial. It was in the Super Bowl commercial, and he's doing a deal, Jaden Daniels and Livy Dunn and Flage and things like that. But I'm not chasing. Trace is his name, the walk-on men's basketball player. They showed him walking up to the guy Get Gordon and having a conversation with him. So maybe Trace is the one that Get Gordon is going after, but Chase has to know that this man is doing deals. Let me go walk up to him and say, "Hey, you know who I am? Like, you can do a deal with me." And that's the character that everybody could be, because he didn't have no team. He didn't have all this stuff. It was him, his camera, and his laptop. And he was profiting, maybe not in the hundreds of thousands off of NIL. So that's the person that everybody be. And then there was another, I call them character. They're real athletes who she was the best. She could be a contender in the Olympics. She wasn't getting that Olivia Dunn, Flage, and all them was getting. But she was like, dang, why am I getting these deals? Right? And it was just her in the so like there are all different people that you got to make it work based off what you got. So using those, or they all work together. Right? You got to get it how you can, but the opportunity is there for everybody, right?
I love it. I love it. I love it. And also, I want that brings me to kind of like some of the current challenges in the future of NIL, right? So there's been recent discussions about the new NIL regulations and the limitations. I think it was the Instaway versus the House. I know they went back and they're kind of like going back and forth in court. So what do you see? For how do you see some of these things affecting the deals that are going to happen? I know that they're going to have to start paying. The schools are actually going to have to start paying athletes. Like, how do you see this? Paying?
To eventually they'll be able to pay out. It is a lot is the way athletics is ran, but for the average consumer, for the average athlete, like you can make money. The process is the same, right? Like the attorney, right? Athletes are gonna be able to be cool. They already getting paid. There's already athletes making millions of dollars, right? So regardless, the athletes that have the strongest brands, the athletes that are the elite athletes, the one that's benefiting. And kind of a point out question was NIL is an individual. So anybody that can give you a gym that athletes is changing is not right. And like I was wanting to, and when I was giving those different characters, everybody's situation is different. So
it's different.
What you need not is focusing on themselves. like what is available, or what can I do? What information do I need? What education do I need? How does my family need to be educated? Not relying on my age, not relying on a certain school education that I have to be knowledgeable about what's going on and what role can, right? NIL is a sport. And yes, athletes will be able to be paid, but that don't mean you're gonna be able to be paid. You know what I'm saying? Like what's going on in the future. Like, yes, you need to be aware, but how do you do it is what is the main focus. You know, I rarely get into like projections and like, what can happen, because that doesn't affect everybody. It's athletes making money. That's change, and it's become transactional. But at the end of the day, you have to just continue to educate yourself individually as a family and arm yourself to make good decisions, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, making good decisions that make sense for you and yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely key because like even like you said, like just with we were talking about it earlier, the transfer portal and like with how that is going to affect that. But if you keep focused on you and what you know about your situation and not just chase the money, and you make decisions that's going to be good for you, because like you just said, the biggest thing is decision making, and that's going to affect decision making. And the ones that are kind of making sound decisions that isn't just for who's giving, like which scholarship is giving me the most money versus like, okay, what's going to be the best situation for me, and make a decision based on that. I think that's going to be key. And so as we wrap up, I definitely wanted to kind of talk just more about the what you have going on next. Like, tell me a little bit about some of the things that are going to be important for you, and what advice you have for athletes.
Educate as many families as I can. I have an major NIL academy, and it's all about helping you build your brand. It's all about helping you stay informed about what's going on. So that's the biggest thing for me, is educating as many athletes as I can, speaking, program, and I'll probably do my how NIL is changing college athletics, or the effects of college athletics, and things like that. But my biggest focus is education, because that's the thing that's missing. And I know, but my story, how building a brand and using opportunity could change your life. So if you're interested in, or you go to majornilsuccess.com. I do free workshops on Instagram, all those types of things. I'll actually be breaking down the money game with a group of parents. So if there are any parents who are interested in working with me, learning from me on a consistent basis, I have a free group. It's called Major Success MVP, Most Valuable Parent, and that's what focus is education and helping, mentoring, and having athletes in my coaching program to help them be prepared.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Aisha, thank you again for coming on, sharing the insights. I love what you're doing. To all the listeners, stay tuned for our next episode. We'll definitely, make sure you follow us, like, subscribe on Instagram and YouTube. This will be posted, up on YouTube, and we want to make sure that we follow Aisha on all her socials. We'll have it down in the comments below. And thanks again. See y'all next week. Dream big.